Hello everybody, welcome to the video today. In today's video we will be looking at my NRL Fantasy team. I'll go position by position, going through each player, why I picked them, and other candidates I looked at. And before we get started, yes, I was one of the people who managed to fit Payne Haas, Nathan Cleary, and Terrell May into my team. Anyway, let's get on with the video. Now, starting at hooker, I do have Harry Grant. It's maybe a bit of a risky buy because he is so expensive. And I very nearly went with Reed Marnie because of his price tag. He's less than 500k. Great value for him. But it was a last minute call I made, and I had heaps of money left over. So the only position I really thought I could upgrade a lot in was that hooker position, and Harry Grant was the best option that I could afford. Brayley was out of my budget, so I wasn't able to go with him. But, it's Harry Grant. Probably the best hooker in the game. He's going to rack up points. Although I did start with him last season, and he did have a below average season. I'm hoping, for this team's sake, that he can pick it back up and get back to where he was prior to last season. Now we move into our middles. My current captain I have as Payne Haas. He's just a freak. The numbers this guy puts up, it's ridiculous. He's got the highest ceiling in fantasy. I think if you're playing fantasy this year, he is the one player you need to have in your team. He's just so his average is so high. His floor is like 50, just still above average for most players. I don't know how you can't have him in your team, even at that price point. It's very, very good option. Now, currently, I do have Bailey Hayward in my middle, but in round two, I will move Terrell May in, and Hayward will move to my bench as my backup hooker. Overall, though, he's a cheap option, 375k. It's a great price for a starting NRL hooker. And he scored me 46 points, which it's not amazing, but it's not terrible. It's pretty good for that price point, pardon me. Um, yeah, just a very, very solid bench option this year. He's dual position as well, which helps a lot. Now we move into my third middle. I've gone with Trey Mooney. He's a lot of people own him, 45.7%, as you can see there. He started off the season very well after Vegas. 66 is an amazing score for someone at that price point. But every time he played last season for the Raiders, he was consistently one of their top scorers, even though he didn't get on the field very often. He was in this team from day one, really, and there's no one else you're going to get this much value out of for a similar price point or less. So I think Trey Mooney is honestly a must-have. You, although you cannot bring him into your team now because he has played already. On to my edge forwards. The first one I've gone Toby Couchman. I really loved him last season for the Dragons. I thought he was their best player, even if Gutherson did get the award. In fairness, he was injured for a lot of the season, so that's probably why. But every time he was on the field, I just thought he was the Dragons' best player. He's very consistent. The only concern is injuries with him. He got 56, which at that price is decent. It's nothing spectacular, it's a pretty premium option, but that dual position could come in very handy. So yeah, I've gone Toby Couchman. My other second rower is very popular pick this year, Dave Fafita. As you can see, 53.6%. Will be starting for Souths this season. 500k for someone who could realistically be scoring in the 60s most weeks. Then again, he could be scoring an average of 30, but I think Wayne Bennett could get the best out of him, and as a lot of people do. He is not that he's not that big a gamble considering that price point, but he is a gamble nonetheless, and I have gone with him. Now we move down into my halves. I do have Nathan Cleary. It's Cleary. Um, Originally, when I saw he got a 2-game suspension, I did put Mitch Moses in, and even when he came back from suspension, I still very nearly went Moses. He's less than 600k, and he'll score similar to Cleary when he's fit. But that's the thing with Moses. That's the reason I haven't gone with him, is if he's fit. He's very injury prone. We saw it last season. He struggles to stay fit. And Cleary has been pretty injury prone, but not to the level of Moses. And I think this is just. He's consistently amazing every week, has a very high ceiling. And as you can see, 32.6% of people have owned him. Yeah. My other half, Ethan Sanders. Now, he is my bench option until Dewey's back from his bye. But still, 350k for a starting halfback in the NRL. I don't think you can say no to that. That is very good price. That'll be very great value. And he's got Ricky Stewart coaching him, which means, by the come end of the season, should have a very good kicking game. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say about him. Now, on my centers, I have gone very cheap here because it's not traditionally a position that scores very well in fantasy. Although I did consider putting Herbie Farnworth in, I opted to go cheap so I could afford other players in other positions. Firstly is Will Penasini. Not the biggest fan of him, but at that price point, someone who can be as good as Penasini, feel like it's not a bad buy. He may go to my bench when Macassini's back from his bye, but we'll see what he scores in round one before I make that decision. Then my other center, I've gone Tom Chester. Very popular pick. 43.7% of people have gone with him. 250k dual position. As you can see, he scored 45 in round one, which is a pretty solid score for a center at that price point. I'm very happy with that. And yeah. Now we move down to my wing fullbacks. My first one might not be a very popular pick, but I have gone Savelio Tamale from the Raiders. But now, before his injury, he was leading the league in tackle breaks and was up there in very many stats. I'm surprised to see that not many people have gone with him. But his stats were ridiculous before his injury last year, and even in the finals, he was one of the Raiders' best, even in a poor final series. He's got that starting wing spot locked down now. And yeah, he's pretty cheap too at 468k. The other one is a very popular pick, Suafa Alongo, 467k, 40.7% owned. Will start at fullback for one of the best development systems in the competition. Should blow it out of the water this year, realistically. You know, he's a very good talent with Munster and Hughes and Grant backing him up. He should be racking up those points very easily. Then my other wing fullback is Jai Gray. Only 13.1% of people own him, which is still a pretty big amount, but I would have thought more. because he is that starting fullback. And last season, I know he only had an average of about 40 in there. He only averaged about 40 across the season, but that is heavily bogged down by 10-point performances in 4 minutes off the bench, on 5 minutes off the bench, really. That's when he was starting at fullback, he was averaging 50s and 60s. And only 500k, I think he's almost a must have. Now we move on to my bench. Firstly is Setu 2, a starting winger in the NRL at the lowest possible price point. It's a must have. You can see there 46.8% of people have him. He scored 42 in Vegas. I just, that's really good value for someone. He hasn't locked down his starting spot. He may well be dropped, but 230 for someone who is currently starting on the wing, it's a great deal. Next up is Cooper Bye from the Titans. 250k in middle forward. He's looks likely to at least get a bench spot this year. There was rumors of him starting at lock. Now I don't see how likely that is, but still, he's going to be getting very good minutes, and for 250k, someone the Roosters and the Storm are sniffing around. It's just he's a very, very good player. Well, he could be a very, very good player this season. Other second rower, I'm a little bummed that I went with him now. After I was 50-50 between him and Helam Lukey for the season. Helam Lukey dropped to 68 in Vegas or something like that. But yes, I've gone with Joe Chan. I just heard the rumors that he was going to be starting in the second row for Melbourne to replace Eli Katoa this season. 311k, someone who's going to start for the Storm. I think it's a great deal, and I'm surprised that only 6.2% of people have him. I think more people should be jumping on the bandwagon. Should be jumping on the Joe Chan. Next, I've got one I'm really happy with. I've gone with Ryan Couchman. Yes, I went with both yes, I went with both Couchman brothers. 250k. He's not starting every week, but he's dropped 60 points off the bench in Vegas. It's 250k. He's gonna get regular game time. From what I saw, he's a very similar player to his brother, and as I said before, I'm a huge fan of him. In fairness, I'm not totally convinced that they're different people, but 250k. He scored 60 in his opening round. He's gonna be regularly in the mix. Just a great deal. Now, one of my Tigers players. I'll start with a big one. Yes, I've gone Terrell May. Oh, wow. I'm surprised that only 6.5% of people have him. Like, last year he was my captain on fantasy over Payne Haas. I had both him and Haas. Um, you know, 930k is a lot of money to pay when you've already got Haas in the team. But it's a price I'm willing to pay for the consistent 70s that Terrell May was scoring last year. From day one of fantasy, I had no doubt in my mind that I wanted both May and Haas, and I have somehow managed to get both of them into my team. And then I also have Adam Dewey is my second half. He'll be with Cleary once he's back from his bye. But the back end of the season when they moved him into halfback, he was consistently dropping 60 scores. I think it was 170 in there. He was scoring really well. I'm a bit disappointed they've removed his center option because he was very useful to have as that dual position player. But 18.8%, I don't think he's a must have, but less than 600k, he's probably going to average in the 50s. He's a really great buy this year in fantasy. Now my third of the Tigers players, he will likely take over from Penasini in round two. I have Macassini. Very similar names. He's 57.3% owned. I think he's the second most owned player on fantasy this year behind Payne Haas. 250k. I believe he's going to be starting for the Tigers this season. He's dual position, center and wing. Like, that's just really good deal. 250k for someone who's going to be starting. And from what I've seen of him, I'm really impressed. I think he's going to be a very good player down the line. Not exactly sure how old he is. I know he's young, like 19 or something, but he could be a great buy this year. Now, finally, in my emergencies, I do have Pasami Solo. This one was just sort of, a depth option that I had in case, just so I could free up some cash. Another middle. He's consistently solid, even if his points don't really show it. He's more of a defensive prop, and they don't score nearly as well on fantasy. I do really like him as a player. Fantasy might not be the greatest option, but you know, I do need someone that's really cheap in my emergencies who probably won't go up a heap in price, considering the amount of upside and how much increase I'm probably going to have in my prices. But I mean, 21 in Vegas is a little disappointing. But he could prove me wrong later this year. Well, anyway, yeah, that's my team. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'd love to hear about your fantasy teams in the comments down below. And guys, get out of here.